Kemi Badenoch has basically already admitted defeat in the May local elections at this speech at her launch event, which, by the way, is in Buckinghamshire, normally a very safe Tory seat where you wouldn't have to put any effort in to get the votes. But clearly the Tories are scraping the barrel, and what once was a safe Tory area is now marginal, and they are desperate because Tory voters are dropping like flies to the Reform Party. Listen to her speech.
On the 1st of May, we head to the polls. The last time we fought these local elections was 4 years ago. As Nigel said, in 2021, we were riding high during the vaccine bounce. This year will be different. It will be the first time since the general election, the greatest defeat in our party's history, that we fight these seats. And if you mapped that general election result of 2024 onto this coming May, then we don't win the councils like we won in 2021. We lose almost every single one. But I think we're going to do a bit better than that. But we know that these elections will be extremely difficult.
So there we go. Kemi Badenoch, her best bet is to do a little bit better than a complete wipeout. That's just pathetic. I mean, she clearly has pretty low ambitions for these local elections, really starting off getting the morale up in high spirits by telling everyone the best we can do is a little bit better than total wipeout. It looks like we are going to be losing the vast majority of councils where we once had control. Not really a good start, and just shows how far the Tory party has slid back in the lead up to the general election and after the general election. Reform are absolutely surging in the polls. Now, what is Kemi's best bet for campaigning in these local elections? Well, to keep it local. Don't dare mention the Tories' appalling track record when it comes to national politics.
But we also know why they matter. These elections will decide who runs your local services and how much you pay for them. Who fills the potholes on your roads? Who collects your bins? Who sets your council tax? Who makes sure your community gets value for money? And in every one of these areas, Conservatives deliver lower taxes, better services.
So there we go, keeping it local, not daring to mention the Tories' poor track record on a national level. She goes on in this video to refer to those viral videos that we've seen of Birmingham, where the bins are just all over the street, piling up high because the bin collectors are on strike, pointing at Labour-run councils for hiking up council tax whilst failing to provide good services for the community. But will that convince people to vote Conservative in the local elections? Now, Kemi Badenoch, she mentions later on in this speech that the Reform Party have no experience of running local councils. Why should they be trusted? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Would you vote for a Tory even if you're a supporter of Farage and the Reform Party on a national level because you trust the Tories more as local councillors because they have more experience? Is that trick going to work for Kemi Badenoch? I don't know, but she really hasn't... She's not sounding very upbeat and very optimistic when she says her best bet is to do a little bit better than a total wipeout. And I wanted to show you this pretty damning column that Madeline Grant has written for The Telegraph on Kemi Badenoch's speech that we've just listened to there. And she says Kemi Badenoch's rallying cry is more a management of expectations. Let's take a look at this article. It's pretty funny the way she's written it, to be honest. Madeline, she says, "Good morning Buckinghamshire," began Kemi Badenoch. "Good morning Vietnam might have been more appropriate as the haggard faces of Tory activists behind her stared out in the middle distance. Not really good at working the crowd, is she? It's quite impressive to make her chocolate box selection of characters from Middle England give off the vibe of Lieutenant Dan from Forrest Gump, but the last few years of Conservative electoral fortunes have managed it. These people had seen things, man." And she points out the fact that this launch event is being hosted in Buckinghamshire, which is a very, very strange choice. And listen to what Madeline says here. She says, there was a time when the Conservatives would no more have bothered to have launched their campaign in Buckinghamshire than on Mars. This was a place where campaigning was almost pointless. Tory votes were assured. They could have put a blue rosette on a cashew nut and still romped home, yet the Shires' falling out with the Tories is well documented. Mrs. Badenoch had come to begin the healing process. So to me, this suggests that the Tories are pretty desperate because they're only going to campaign in places that are marginal, right? If they are going and campaigning in a place that is a safe Tory area, that suggests it's not very safe anymore, and that pretty much all of the Conservatives' votes are potentially up for grabs going to the Reform Party because people are absolutely fed up of them. Even if they are a bit better on a local level than Labour and other parties, people are so angry about the Tories on the national level that, the morale in the party is just in the gutter. And let's have a look at how hopeful she was. So she said that she expected to do a bit better than the general election. Not very optimistic, is it? And Madeline says, which is a bit like Triceratops, saying that they expect the coming ice age to be a little bit more bearable than the asteroid impact. It's not very optimistic, is it? Her solution was to focus on the hyper-local. Cue much reference to potholes and fly tipping. The Tories were much better than their rivals. Interestingly, she made specific attacks on the Greens and Reform as well as Labour and the party of perpetual local government, the Lib Dems. That came later in the speech, which we didn't look at. She invoked the beleaguered Brummies and their uncollected rubbish more than once, which, as I say, has been trending. And of course, there were journalist questions at the end. How did she cope with those? Well, guess what? She was constantly asked about the Reform Party, which seems to happen at pretty much every event where she has to speak to the press now. She's probably pretty bored of it. And how did she deal with this? Well, as I say, in her speech, towards the end of the speech, she pointed out the fact that Reform do not really have any experience on the local level. And when she was asked about what she's going to do about Nigel by many people, Madeline says, calmly repainted the image of Mr. Farage being in charge of your bin collection, Richard Tice fixing your potholes, or Lee Anderson allocating lollipop ladies. Whether this will be enough to quell the wave of protest voting remains to be seen. So there we go. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Will you be trusting people like Farage with your bin collection and Richard Tice with fixing your potholes? Do you think the Reform Party can be trusted at the local elections? Do you think a lot of people will err on the side of safety and go with the Tories because they have experience? Or do you think that whatever Kemi Badenoch says, the Tories are absolutely finished? Her optimism doesn't seem to suggest that they're going to do well. Anyway, I'm Chloe Dobbs. Thank you very much for watching. Subscribe to Reasoned if you haven't already.